Okay, it's starting. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our user group session today, and really glad that we're going to have two amazing speakers today. And we're going to start to debug what is Agentforce and how this thing is linked with Tableau and how actually it's working. So we're going to have one speaker that's going to be explaining more what's going on the Agentforce on the Salesforce side. So we're going to understand how it's working on the mother company. And after, we're going to have somebody technically explaining what's going on at the Tableau side. Yeah. So actually, this is a really good, interesting session. I know like it's a rough start of the year, but we're going to start doing this presentation anyway. Okay. So this is our team. So I'm Adrian Zinove. I'm a Tableau ambassador visionary, and I'm the co-lead of this Toronto user group. And we have Ada and Kavaljit. So I'll introduce Kavaljit. So she's a Tableau consultant, and she's co-leading with us this user group. And we have Ada. So she's a CRM ambassador. So she's also in between Salesforce, Tableau, and analytics. So we have a really good team. Um, uh, okay, I'm gonna start this. So I found this really amazing slide. So what exactly is Agentforce, how this is working inside of companies. Well, I mean, all those things that can be used and how can be integrated in your company. Yeah, and I think I'm gonna. Okay, so we have this as well. This is like a new for me because we're not sharing this kind of forward-looking statement, but also just kind of don't make any business decisions based on this presentation. Okay, next. Okay, so we're gonna start with Kathy Waterford. So um, I think you mentioned that your name is Kathleen, so whatever works. She's a Salesforce MVP and kind of one of the most famous in the Salesforce world in Canada, and she's a local here in Toronto. So really glad to see her as a speaker for our group, and she's gonna explain what is Agentforce and specifically more on the Salesforce side. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
And
Okay.
I'll unmute. And as I'm setting up my sharing, I will apologize. And Ada will know this because she was at my presentation on the weekend, but I am coming down with a cold. So I may have to go on mute to cough or sneeze. Hopefully I'll get through the presentation first, but bear with me. So anyways, Agentforce, yes. Yeah, just the title slide, just nothing a thing. And I didn't realize I was quite as famous as Adrian says. So it's like, okay. But just to give you a bit of my background, I'm a freelance administrator slash consultant. I primarily work in the nonprofit space, um, just helping out nonprofits who don't have full-time admins. And as Adrian said, I'm an MVP. I'm also the True North Dreaming Chair and also lead an architect group and a Salesforce Saturday group, as well as a board member and a coach with Rad Women. And speaking of True North Dreaming, if you've ever heard of dreaming events such as Midwest Dreaming or Northeast Dreaming, or even Dreamforce, think Dreamforce, but on a much smaller scale and community run, we are holding a Canadian one in April in Vancouver, BC. There's a QR code if you're interested. We've been on a hiatus for 5 years, so we're bringing it back. So hopefully some of you can attend. And thank you for coming to the presentation. It's always good when we have people in the community join us at these events. So uh, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have them. So thank you for participating. So as you know, AI is nothing new. It's been around for a while, but initially it was very just more predictive, and then we were getting into the co-pilots, and now we're at the age of agents. And agents have become a much more powerful tool over the previous two, and we'll just go on and see. And apparently the next two waves are robotics and artificial general intelligence. Who'd have thought we got to this point already? Who knows how quickly those two will be here? Maybe next year. Um, but as you know, Salesforce is a platform that prides itself on customer 360. It's evolved quite a bit since it started in 1999, all the way through introducing Einstein in 2016, and then Data Cloud in 2021, and now 2024. Just last October is when agents were um, introduced, and Salesforce has 3 releases per year. So every time there's a uh, release, things keep improving. And the idea behind Agentforce is to help businesses reduce their cost and improve their customer satisfaction by providing faster and more personalized responses and making it much more automated to free up their users or their employees' times. Um, and how it does this is it allows businesses to both create and use the AI agents that automate the tasks. It improves their customer service, and it can work in all sorts of different levels, whether it be in sales, marketing, service, commerce, health, you name it. It probably is available there. And this slide is from a deck they gave us. So it's still saying GA in October. Obviously, it's long past October, so it is already GA. It's built on the that it's trusted and secure. It's scalable. You can easily customize it. It gives a 360 view of the customer, and it unifies the metadata, especially if you use the data cloud behind it, and it's available to the ecosystem. And I don't know anybody in that picture, which is actually fairly rare. um, so as we know that, chatbots have been around for a while, but as many of you know, they're pretty much fixed rules, repetitive tasks, and if you don't ask questions the right way, they don't answer your question in a way you'd like to hear it. Um, then we got to co-pilots that started getting a little smarter and more tailored assistance. And now with agents, the plus with agents is that agents can make decisions. They can also take actions and prioritize their tasks. So they bridge between the large language models and the business use cases with different, they use little building blocks. The actions are just multiple building blocks that it can work off of. Then it's organized under areas such as topics, or they're called topics. And then the agents can orchestrate what their actions they're going to use, and then using their reasoning. And it's all grounded in the data that's in the enterprise org. But it's also trained with guardrails, so you can tell it what it can and can't do. And of course, since trust is the number one um, mm, the number one, I can't remember the word, sorry. It's secured by the Einstein trust layer. So, the trust is also always number one with Salesforce. So the 5 attributes of an agent is the role. So what job should they be doing? It determines what knowledge they can access through the CRM data, knowledge articles, or public websites to perform their tasks. They have their actions of what they are capable of doing. They have guardrails so they can define what they cannot and shouldn't do, or can or cannot do. It can even instruct them to escalate to a human if necessary. And then the channels they could work through web, mobile, WhatsApp, and Slack. And again, all built on the trust layer. And just to give a visual about the different agents that are being developed, first we have the Salesforce platform with the trust layer, then they have data cloud, so where all the information can get unified to give the customer 360, and then all the different agents that will be coming online as time goes on. So the way Agentforce works is it learns and reasons with the Atlas reasoning engine. I don't claim to understand all of everything about Atlas, but it pretty much it retrieves information from data cloud, goes through the reasoning engine, works through its actions, comes with up with an outcome, and then just continuously keeps learning. So every time it's used, it is improved. And then the way Agentforce itself works, as I mentioned earlier, there's the building blocks. So you put in a number of available actions that it can take. And then as you go through, it determines. So in this case, it's asking in Agentforce, it says, can you summarize the case? So what it does is it determines that they need action 17 and action 6. And then it gives an answer. And if you change the question to can you book Sophia, which if you've ever done any of the Trailhead on Coral Cloud, you'll learn who Sophia is. But can you book Sophia for the tropical snorkeling experience? It determines that you need actions 15, 2, 13, and 7, and then it works on that to provide an answer. So basically, you have some cloud actions, there are platform actions, and then it uses things such as prompt templates and flow and external services and Apex to be able to activate all the elements in Agentforce. And I'm going to just briefly go into my Salesforce org. I have already set this up. Sorry, I didn't want to be there. This is one of the Salesforce orgs you can get for doing the badges on Trailhead. So essentially to activate Agentforce, you first need to turn on Einstein, which is just go into generative AI and just flip the switch. And then if you then have to turn on Agentforce, so you then go into agents. And again, just flip the toggle and turn it on. And then you can go into, you could create a new agent, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to go into one that we already have, that we built. This is the Agentforce default that we created as part of a workshop on the weekend. And then if you open it in Builder, you can see that there's topics. So currently, right now, we only have the one topic. But in here, you can see that you get a description. You can determine the scope. So in here, the scope says that its role is to assist a customer service rep in supporting guests with inquiries about reservations. So you could define it. And the nice thing is you can define it in natural language. It gives instructions such as never ask a user for an ID, instead ask for a record that's relevant. And the topics actions, you can see that there is a whole list of different actions that the Agentforce can determine from what they can choose to use. And I'll just show you how it works. This is a conversation preview, which can be used. And you go, show me any high priority cases open. and then just click return. It's working. Okay, so it looks like the answer came back that looks like there's no high priority cases. But just to see how it works, you have the user prompt. It selects a topic, so customer service assistant. In this case, it's the only one, but that's okay. It determines which actions it needs to go through. It looks at the instructions. It determines which actions it needs to go through. It selects the action that it decides it needs, which is query records with aggregate, and then it comes back with a response. And that is just a brief overlook on Agentforce in Salesforce. And it, excuse me, and here comes the coffee. So does anybody have any questions?
Kathy, does agent need to sit on top of the data cloud? Or like, do I need to have a data cloud first implemented in order to have the Agentforce, or it can be sit on its own?
To be honest, don't have a clear answer on that. For the most part, it does work better with Data Cloud. I've heard people say you just need to turn Data Cloud on. You don't necessarily have to have all the bells and whistles with it for it to work. It's there's a lot of stories going around, and unfortunately, I don't have the definitive answer. Because they say you can do this on its own, and you could say it needs to be done with Data Cloud. I've always learned with Data Cloud turned on. So
one quick perspective on that is that I believe where the difference there is that you need it for the Einstein trust layer needs to be turned on for large language model access, and that is built through Data Cloud, which is why you need to turn that on. When you look at all the actions that Kathleen has demonstrated are available here on the left side, there's some actions that would be much better served via Data Cloud, coordinating, facilitating the data, if you would. So like Brian brought up, and Ada, sorry, I'm getting a little background from you, but like Brian brought up an example of accessing AWS or Google Cloud for data, right? Things along those lines. Data Cloud can provide facilitation of that data. So connect it into a Salesforce record, right? But there's other actions where maybe you just need to affect a record in Service Cloud, and there's no need for Data Cloud to be involved there. And so all it's really operating as is maybe the facilitation of the trust layer. So I think that it's sort of one of those like fuzzy areas, but I do think Kathleen's right. You would have to at least turn it on. How much you utilize it is a use case by use case basis.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the explanation.
Yeah, definitely that point. And from what I understand, and I have actually heard two different versions of this story, that it's $2 US per conversation. And I've heard both, so I'm not exactly sure which is the correct one, that it's, a conversation, or it could be an incoming conversation and an outgoing conversation, or it's a conversation between you and a customer within a 24-hour period. I'm not 100% sure which is the correct one, because like I said, even some Salesforce employees I've talked to aren't 100% sure. So it's still fairly new, so a lot of the little nuances are still being figured out. But Agentforce 2.0 is coming out, so we'll see if we get some clear guidelines on all that.
Sounds good. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, now let's move to Cameron. It's my honor to introduce Cameron Ford as our guest speaker today. Cameron has decades of experience in business intelligence, and also he holds a master's degree in data science from Cal Berkeley. Cameron specialized in combining human-centered design with data science to create impactful solutions. So known for his talent in bringing any vision to life in Tableau, today he will share how large language model and agents can elevate analytics to the new height. So please join me today in welcoming Cameron.
Awesome, thank you so much. And now let me make sure I can actually share this properly. So let me know when you can see here. And thanks team for having me come join here. I'm really excited to be talking with you all, particularly talking to the Tableau user community is always such a fun experience for me. Going to Tableau conference and experiencing the joy that is within this community is always a highlight in my career. So let me jump through a few of these slides. This was built in conjunction with some of our Tableau community members, but I've also gone ahead and put in my own version of some of these things. So feel free to ask questions along the way. Again, we'll be looking at some forward-looking content here, specifically about Tableau. And so I'll just remind you all that customers should base purchasing decisions on currently available products. And just to emphasize the thank you again, I started at Tableau 10 years ago, and this past decade, the most inspiring moments have been interacting with this community. And every moment where I've been able to see careers that were expanded and changed by Tableau are the moments that keep not just me coming back, but also our development team and our whole company. And so thank you for the passion and love that this community has. And it keeps pushing us to take on that next challenge. And so yeah, just thanks for being on this journey together, and look at just how large this community has grown. It's really quite incredible. And I think it's when we think about the impact that Tableau and Agentforce can have together, it's this community that's going to make the difference there. And that is something that I don't want to lose sight of. And so your feedback, your ideas, everything is very welcome. So also I can't ever do a presentation without sharing a little bit about myself. So just really quickly, I hail from the Pacific Northwest in the US. I have this wonderful toddler here, and I recently gave him the worst haircut of all time. And so I've been removed from any haircutting roles and responsibilities in the future. But I love to play soccer in my free time. I love to do triathlons. I was up in Montreal last year, but it got canceled due to the fires, which was a bummer. But triathlons keep me busy. And then also got that master's in data science from Cal, and have spent the majority of my career here at Tableau. And it's been those last two, I think, have been really exciting for me to see what's coming in the future of combining that data science approach with the business analytics side. And so when we think about that invent of large language models, as they've now been implemented, you hear about it from the term used as agents, right? But as this has entered into the general use, every industry and profession has had to take a look at how they operate and understand what challenges remain and where we need to innovate further. And so the question becomes, how will this technology impact that profession? And so thinking about analytics, the challenges that we often see here is that insights are often overlooked or ignored. Think about this as people finding the right insights, or those insights aren't trusted, or they're buried in a sea of dashboards, right? So it's that we're facing that every day. I think oftentimes I like to ask customers, is your challenge that you don't have enough dashboards? And oftentimes I get a laugh because it's like, oh, no, we have plenty of dashboards, right? But the sort of side effect of those inefficiencies is that we have analysts who end up buried in a set of tasks versus and just sort of churning out new sort of dashboards or turning out different tasks versus solving some higher level problems of really understanding the data and what it's telling us, and in combination with business challenges, right? And so when we think about what the promise of AI to analytics is, one of my colleagues likes to say that large language models fundamentally solves a findability problem, right? So as a first solve, how impactful would it be if agents could just retrieve insights more effectively or bring existing analysis to business users, right? Like how much would we decrease recreating the wheel? What if we could help people search through existing content more effectively and bring it to them where they need it? In this way, we can think about like scaling analysts further than we've ever had before, reducing those repeat tasks. So if I build analysis, how can I make sure it reaches all of those end users? Today, that's really challenging, right? There's so much communication, so much noise, but what if the agents provide a better access point? And then also, like, what happens if we can actually have the agents ask some low-hanging questions or answer some low-hanging questions for users? Again, trying to focus on removing some of those lower level tasks internally at an organization to free the analysts to focus on those higher level ones. And so if this all sounds really good, but we need to figure out how to close that gap, right? And on one side of this sits our business and analysts, and on the other side of it sits our agents, right? Who are this sort of autonomous way, the promise of that autonomous action. And so we needed a platform that allows business and analysts to infuse business meaning on top of their data, right? So it's not just specific, the data needs additional insights that humans are providing. And then we also need agents to be able to scale and take action and also provide that access to data, right? And so allowing a platform to do both of those things is where Tableau and Agentforce is really going to expand the world of possibilities. And so to talk about the right-hand side, right? So you heard about Agentforce. This is the Salesforce's new platform to help scale and build and scale large language model technology in a trusted and grounded fashion, right? So think of interacting with your go-to large language model. Let's say it's ChatGPT, but it already has all of the instructions on how to perform a task for you, right? So let's say like research an external company. So now it has all those instructions surrounding your question of, I want to know more about Tableau. And so it has information in there. It also has a set of skills that allow it to take action, right? So think about searching for and finding a 10K and pulling that in and synthesizing that, maybe creating a meeting prep document, right? Like specific actions that agent will be able to do on your behalf. So all of that creates a repeatable and more useful process. And that's really what Agentforce is enabling. And they put this trust layer around it to make it secure for businesses to utilize. They're also working, I think of them as working on behalf of humans or of people in a business. And there's that benefit if Salesforce has the largest front office application, right? It also has the largest collaboration platform with Slack, right? Like think about accessing people everywhere that they work and via Slack. And then they also have the best analytics technology on the market with Tableau, right? And the best community surrounding that analytics platform. And so I do really believe that Salesforce and Tableau together are set to be at the forefront of this wave of innovation. And going back to that, like kind of how you saw that picture that Kathleen showed of like the platforms built up. So you have the Salesforce platform here at the bottom, right? And then you have Data Cloud, and you see that trust layer as part of Data Cloud. This is providing, I like to call it like the facilitation of data. So how do I connect who Cameron Ford is in my Sales Cloud experience to my Service Cloud, to my, when I am interacting with your website versus calling in on the phone, right? All of these different things. How do I make sure that I have the right persona identified? Data Cloud is sort of facilitating through all the data through all of those different applications. But this is where Tableau comes in, right? We have to start giving Agentforce that ability to answer some basic data, I lost my talk right there as I got really excited here. So I wanted to start by thinking back to when I was talking about business analysts infusing meaning on top of data. So looking on top of this Data Cloud piece, how do we start to process like giving Agentforce the ability to answer some basic questions? If I asked it, how many active candidates do we have in our pipeline? Like this may seem like an easy question to answer, but the reality is that each business is going to define this differently depending on their HR practices. So yes, I may have, a candidate profile in Data Cloud, and I may have like, some information about them stored there. But what if we are a business that has a high number of inbound applications, right? So we want to filter out any early stage resume review candidates, or even candidates still going through manager screens. Like only people filtered out from there, we want to consider active candidates. Or, conversely, what if we're a company that is focused on headhunting, and so we have very few but very high quality candidates, right? So in this case, anybody who's reached the manager screen, we want to capture. This is the type of information that analysts imbue on our data, right? Through working with the business, through working with completing actions, we are putting this information in our analysis. We're sort of encoding it there, if you would. And we need the way for analysts to actually store that information scalably. That's really where Tableau, and what you'll hear us reference is like the new Tableau, comes in as we are building Tableau into the Salesforce platform, right? And if we think about then going from this to like empowering agents to form queries to actions, the success of Agentforce to write a query will be determined on the data model, right, that was prepared on top of Data Cloud or another source, right? So that data model is going to be critical for that, and is again prepared by that analyst, creating the logical joins, creating all of the calculations, all of that information like that. That is going to be critical. And then I think about finding the right content, right? Like, what if we want to be able to return back existing analysis? So certifying those high quality dashboards or workbooks would prioritize help prioritize that search capability that Agentforce could do. And so I just wanted to give this picture of like the set of skills here that are like really what Tableau is bringing to bear, on top of why it really needs to exist on top of Data Cloud, as well as like why it needs to exist period in this agentic, this next phase of AI with this agentic world. And the more time that I spend on this topic, the more that I really am confident that all of that information I was talking about coming from analysts, like that is what's going to make this next wave of agents successful. And so I think analysts have a critical role to play in the future. And if we go forward, and I want to like make these skills a little bit more clear, like in the Agentforce world, like those default actions that Kathleen was showing, some of those actions we'll just classify them here as like, maybe it's preparing and visualizing data. Like for this, I think effective, like pulling back visualizations, or like maybe writing that query and pulling back that visualization, maybe some enhanced Q&A feature of taking a look at our metrics layer. So if you have Pulse, right, like using some of that metrics layer to enable some second, third level questions. With Inspector, think about helping us think about sort of proactively triggering actions based off of when changes are observed in the data. And then with analytical apps, like this is maybe like reuse of applications, which we've had in our community before, but looking at this as a larger stack. So these skills are going to be available in both the new Tableau as well as Tableau Cloud, and leveraging that. And then, so like if you think about Tableau Cloud, some of what I was talking about with Tableau Pulse and Tableau Agent, that's what this is referencing. But then they also will show up via Agentforce, and that's really what I want to highlight for you today. So these first two are examples that will show. I want to give you the demo. And based off of the time constraints today, I'm just going to show you a video and then kind of pause it and talk over it. And we can also have a presenter come in future sessions to look at more specifically kind of how the analytical process is getting a lift with the new Tableau. So anyways, I'll play a video and then pause it and talk over the top as I have time. As I start playing it, if you can hear it. Make sure.
Let's imagine that I'm a brand manager for a company called DataFam Kicks, and I'm trying to hire a street team to get the work.
We see your email.
I have a ton.
I mean,
Okay.
like, it's your.
Did you hear the video when it was playing?
Yeah, we hear it. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll keep playing here.
A ton of people applying to be part of the team, and I want to make sure that I apply data and my business rules to be able to manage these applications and ensure that I hire the right people for the team. Here I have an application from Simone. Her application has gone into a data set that's in this spreadsheet of all of my job postings. I need to sift through these and find the best candidates for these different roles. It'd be great to be able to take the power of Tableau's data and trust and pair that with agentic capabilities to make sure that I find the right people. I'm going to walk you through how we would do that and create an agent that we can leverage using data. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this button to create a new agent. I'm going to begin creating this agent in the Agentforce builder, and I'm going to start from scratch. I can then tell the agent what its role is using natural language. I don't have to use any code. I just tell this agent that it's a recruiter and explain what the agent is going to do. It'll review job requisitions, analyze profiles, explain fit, and make recommendations. When we do that, it goes and finds topics for the agent that we can leverage. You'll see it suggesting these Tableau analytic skills like Data Pro and Data Concierge. This makes sense since there's some work with analyzing and processing data that needs to happen, as well as the ability to answer questions. If I click Edit for Data Concierge, I can tune exactly which of these actions I want this agent to be able to do. I want my colleagues to be able to interact with this agent through Slack, so use semantic data model and generate visualizations are the actions that make the most sense.
So I just wanted to pause here and highlight this, right? So these are the set of default actions out of the, in the library. So when you saw Kathleen present about like platform actions, this is in that list of like they're built into Agentforce to leverage work from Tableau, right? And so, if you think about building visualizations, right, that is like using what we've known as like our VizQL technology to turn somebody's agentic or like their query or their utterance is the word that people use into queries, but also to return back that via a visualization. Or like analyzing a metric would be saying, let's take a look at a metric designed in Pulse, right? Or a Pulse-like experience to see how this thing is changing and what are the core drivers of it changing. And then the last thing I wanted to call out here is like semantic data model. This is in the data cloud and Salesforce world. This is the phrase used. It is most easily understood from a Tableau lens as a published data source with a few enhancements. So just wanted to call that out because this is sort of a nomenclature change, but for folks that have used Tableau for a long time, this is most easily understood as a published data source. So it has all the same like logic and the joins and the calculations, all of that I mentioned previously. So this is, I'll go ahead and let it continue.
It's taken my pretty minimal prompt and turned that into the set of instructions that I can later tune and refine. This all looks good, so I'm going to say next. Now I'll define how we're going to interact with this agent. I'm going to do that through Slack, but it could be done through any of these different channels. So what I've done is I've created this agent, I've given it topics and actions that I want it to do, and I can then make sure that it has the data. This is the power of Tableau. These are the Tableau data sources on all of the information. But this could be other things as well. It could be a Google Doc, or it could be more qualitative information like company culture that we're trying to build, just to name a few. So ensure that you have.
So that was skipped over pretty quickly, but I do think, just sort of stepping back a second, let's see here, to this, like this published data source, I think this is where from a Tableau lens, our skills are going to need to change the most going forward, right? Because the beauty of the ease of use of Tableau is how you can just start analysis on a new data set. The byproduct of that is that published data sources are relatively unused in our user community. I mean, they just aren't used to nearly the amount that they need to be. From an agent, if you're trying to scale through agents, that all is going to need to funnel through published data sources. And so there's a little bit of emphasis shift that has to happen in our community to focus on those published data sources and like the curation of the data. And I think that work and understanding why you curate the data and what business challenges that data can be utilized for is going to be the skill that kind of we have to grow more of. Just want to emphasize that because I think it is subtle, but an important point.
Information like company culture that we're trying to build, just to name a few. So ensure that you have the right data here, review it, and when ready, click Create Agent. Now it's time to validate that this agent does what I want it to, so I'm going to ask a question in this test environment. Let's ask something simple like, how many active candidates do I have? This seems like a simple question, but there's actually a bit of nuance here. How you define an active candidate actually differs from business to business. It could be someone who's already gone through a phone screen, or it could be someone that we've been in touch with in the past week, or it could be something else entirely. Whatever the business definition is for DataFam kicks, that's what gets applied here. This ensures that we're all talking about the same thing. My team and the agent, we're all on the same page. We know that this is trusted because it's backed by certified data in Tableau. This looks great, so I'm going to go ahead and activate this agent.
And as she goes through this process, one thing that I just wanted to highlight again of like where I think like the combination of all this technology will be incredible is just getting back an answer like 57 is great, but Tableau provides the capability to go beyond that, right? Like our metric, the insights layer behind Pulse metrics gives us these pre-calculations of like, okay, it's up by 11%. There's the current trend is predicting something, right? And where the new Tableau is going is to more seamlessly combine metrics with dashboarding experience. And so I love that, it calls out more detail on the recruiting dashboard here, because you can imagine it's not just about getting people their first question, it's about answering those future questions. And so instead of trying to like grill an agent to give you the right number that you're looking for, maybe part of it is just getting them to the dashboard faster that actually has those questions, right? And getting it, again, this is all about like scaling those analysts further. And so I just felt like that was it's again, a subtle thing that was important to call out.
So how do we actually use this? We set this up as a Slack-centric agent. So let's take a look at what that looks like in Slack. So now I'm in Slack and I have a channel where we're working on recruiting these brand ambassadors. I can simply just ask the agent, who are the top 3 candidates for this role? I send the message and right there in the chat, the agent responds immediately with all of the information. It's a data-driven recommendation with a 92% match. So this sounds good, but I want to understand what's behind that and why the agent is saying that this is such a high match. We have to be able to trust and understand what's behind that. So let's ask, why is Simone the best candidate? And ask the agent to respond in that thread. Here you see that the agent's going to go to the next level and tell us more about what into making that recommendation. We're getting some qualitative and strategic information about this recommendation, which is great, but I can also ask for a breakdown to get more of the quantitative side and understand how we got to that 92% score. Our agent queries Tableau, checks our trusted data, and gives us a breakdown. It also builds us a great visualization to look at. With the help of Tableau and Agentforce, DataFam Kicks now has a new recruitment agent to be able to quickly and effectively find the right people for the team.
So in that last piece that you saw there is with the prediction piece within the Salesforce ecosystem, there's been the prediction builder that was part of what some of you may have heard of as CRMA, is the most recent name it's been under, but that combining the prediction builder experience inside of Tableau has been something that has been part of the drive for the new Tableau as well. And so you can think through that of like row level predictions, and the explainability behind that is something that prediction builder will bring into the Tableau ecosystem. And so being able to leverage that information from the Agentforce interfaces as well, I think will be critical. So I'm going to stop there. That's kind of that's how far I wanted to go today. And then I wanted to make sure we opened it up for questions. But I really appreciate you all for the attention and for having me. And I see one question, just kind of looking at the chat here, about if this will be a beta release soon. So the current way that we're thinking about the new Tableau is that it will be released sort of in certain different parts of the services will be released over the next 6 months. And so it'll be one full portfolio around July timeframe. And there are some customers in beta right now for it. So if you do want to get into an early access program, things along those lines, certainly reaching out through your account team would be the best way to go forward.
Test and train. I think this was an amazing presentation because, I mean, like a lot of people start asking questions. They're kind of looking skeptical, you know, and usually they were like, oh, I'm not sure what's going on. I was like, okay, let's just dig in and clarify and debunk all this things and make sure that we understand at least what's going on and what's coming in the future, because I think the AI is an inevitable, you know, in the future. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I know we did go through a lot of different aspects here. So I appreciate you all for sticking with us. And
oh yeah.
Kirk, to your question about the new Tableau versus Tableau Cloud, there are the default actions that we saw there from like the first ones built in will be for the new Tableau, but some of that is based off of the architecturally. We have prototypes today built where you can leverage Tableau Cloud via, you know, using any of our APIs. And so like one of the customers that I'm working with, their main question was like, hey, I don't actually want the agents to attempt to answer the questions. Like I don't want any query writing because I want it to be really deterministic. But what I do want it to do is get me to the right analysis faster. Because today that could look like writing 10 Slack messages or searching through Tableau for half an hour to find the right dashboard. So could it decrease that amount of time? And so for that, we're using our REST API to pull out all of the catalog information and giving that to Agentforce, right? And so you're sort of grounding it in what analysis already exists today. And so all it's doing there is meant to like point you to that right place. So it's going to be a yes and conversation for a while here between these two different platforms and like when different skills become available. But this was more to show you directionally the way that we're working.
So basically, if you're giving the data catalog information to the agent, so it has to be really kind of descriptive, you know, because otherwise if somebody's using the same name and commissions everywhere, it's going to be just a mess, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I saw another question in here about like, will it vanish the need for a data analyst? And I fall really heavily on the camp of like data analysts aren't going anywhere. I think that if I look at it, I think analytics is inefficient today, and that analysts are being asked to do like spend time in places that aren't value added to a business. And I think this is meant to take away the lower value tasks. And my example for that is like, I always like to talk about pipeline versus pipe gen, right? Of like, if you look at from a Salesforce perspective, they're both using the opportunity amount field, but for pipeline, you're using close date as your definition for how much pipeline do we have set to close this quarter. But for pipe gen, you're using created date, right? Because how much have we created this quarter? Further beyond that, right? You have a bunch of other rules about how would you actually, which part of the pipeline or which part of what's generated, any of you, who's defining that? How do we define that? How do we like talk to a VP of sales, hear how they want to define it, and then put it into the system? Like the analyst role is in there in a very important way. And I think it's not going away. I just think it's meant to, again, try to scale analysts more effectively than we've been able to before.
Yeah. If I can add, I think it's going to be better for each data analyst because they would learn new techniques, I would say, and they will become better than other data analysts. And also from the point of the view of the company side, because the company needs to make sure that they are not missing any insight. So this thing will help them to identify all the aspects of the insights, And this is really good because the company want to make sure that they they're not missing any opportunity, So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any other questions? It's like Bryant is very active today, so he's willing to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian, I will say we have like the working prototype we have, like there's working with folks who have a GitHub up there for the like baseline like code to utilize our APIs to connect it to Agentforce. So documentation is certainly, we're working on getting there for it. And we want to provide that. And as with any company, we'll be imperfect and we'll probably mess up, but we'll do our best to catch up and hear the feedback from you all and then improve our documentation.
Yeah, nice. But anyway, I like this kind of like dialogue perspective. So basically you may jump from the step 1 to step 5, So it should be like intuitive. Okay, what should I do next? Should I click here? Should I click there? So you just go in conversation till the end. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, Kirk, ask something. Oh, Bill. Okay, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that second piece actually about the right questions is really interesting, because the agents, you'll notice that like part of what you're building is this: how do they pick the right topic? And in that topic, you're giving it the agent a set of instructions. When Salesforce, Benioff mentioned this externally when they was talking about Agentforce 2.0, we use Agentforce on our external website. As the first time we put it out there, we hadn't put any proper guardrails on or whatnot, and all of a sudden it started to direct people to our competitors' websites. And it was like, this was something you probably don't want from an external agent, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to tweak those instructions and tweak those guardrails. Internally, like how we provide answers to internal people with Agentforce, like getting it to return valuable insights and valuable information is not going to be just a flip of the switch. Like I do think there will be some work with this system that has to be like, how do we sort of massage the instructions and the guardrails to make sure that it gets to the right place? And also that in some questions, like I imagine a world where it's like, I'm not an agent, but like the agent is sort of like, I'm not going to try to answer that. Instead, I'm going to give you Adrian Slack, and here's, click this, and we'll open a conversation with Adrian so he can get understanding of your question, right? And so it also gets you maybe just to the right analyst faster is another outcome.
Yeah, sounds really good. So, I mean, from my perspective, I would say like BI developer. So you're going to any company, and the biggest challenge is to learn their infrastructure, data, and so on. So you have that data, you can ask those tricky questions and learn this faster, I would say. Yeah, but it's really good.
Yeah.
So Cameron, what do you foresee the biggest challenge in implementing the Agentforce?
My personal my personal view on it is that as with a lot of things, like the word trust gets thrown out there a lot for different things, but I do think there's an old manager of mine, when we were implementing a solution, talked about it as organ failure, of like when you implement a new technology, at what point does the body reject it? Right. And like there's and it's sort of a weird analogy, but also I do think of that of like, when you implement Agentforce, you want, the first time I ask a question and get something deeply unhelpful, how many at-bats does it get before I leave it and go away, right? And so I think there's sort of external use cases for Agentforce are really obvious right now with service use cases. If I go onto a company's website and I ask as a customer, I want to change my reservation or my booking information or do whatever, it's like a pretty clear what I get out of it. Internally at a customer, like internal use cases, I think having it return back the right analytical information and the right insights will be the most important piece of it. And I think whether it's us versus another large language model or another Agentforce technology or agent technology, I think it's the same thing in my mind of like, if it's trust with Agentforce and then the next one comes in, it's maybe still using Tableau, right? But just another. And so anyways, that's what I come back to is like, how do I do it in a way where the first, the first users really believe in it, and then we can build evangelists internally. And I get nervous. My personal fear out there is that I think some executives feel like it can be a magic wand, right? Where it's sort of like, let me just like wave it and I'll immediately get understanding. And so I kind of feel like it's incumbent on me and everybody else who's involved with it to be telling a very clear story that this is not replacing analysts, but it is extending them, and it is pushing their work further. And I think we have to be really clear about that, because otherwise I think there's some easy to get to false expectations.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Anyway, my kind of impression is that if you want to make sure that the company have this adoption, so kind of my personal kind of opinion is that the company needs to see examples. So the more examples you see how others are using, so you can do the analogy and start using it in your company, So this is kind of like the uncertainty of the future. People are like, oh, I'm not sure. So, but if they're gonna see some successful stories, so yeah, definitely we'll see, like the analogy, like Tableau and Tableau Public. So you see tons of dashboards, so it's easy way to learn more. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Okay. So I think we're ready to the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. We wish you a good and healthy day today. Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us. I know it wasn't easy for you. So yeah.
Feel better, Kathleen.
Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for the great presentation. So and see you. This was like the first session this year, so I think it was like amazing.
And there you go, Agent Blazer.
I love it.
Oh, nice.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.